Have you ever eaten a sea worm before?
Or have you ever been to sea on a big boat?
Today we're going to talk about both.
Welcome back, everyone. Today is week 69 of Around the World with Joshua and Alyssa, and we have showed you the Creation Museum for the last 3 weeks, and today we are going to go to the Ark Encounter, the sister attraction to the Creation Museum in Kentucky. So, here we go. So, there we are, just be nice. Yeah. When you arrive at the Ark, I didn't have anything else to say about that picture, sorry. When you arrive at the Ark, you go to a welcome center that looks like this. This is called the Answer Center. They also have this huge auditorium that holds, I don't remember,
A
couple thousand people, I think. And they have a bookstore there and all this stuff, a coffee shop. And when you go back outside, you are greeted by a nice big rainbow arch entrance.
Which is new.
And when you walk through that, you get to
The Ark.
the Ark. There it is. And I don't know how I got this picture with all these people, but I did. And it's just huge. So because you don't see people, you can't really get an idea of how big it is from this picture. But we'll show you some other things closer up. Here is the inside of the Ark, and one of the most impressive things about the whole structure is just the size of the building materials on the inside, like those huge 75-foot trees. That they have there, those tree trunks, and they range anywhere from like 30 some inches to 50 some inches in diameter.
They're big.
Yeah. And so it's just really cool to see how they put all of this together, and to think that, it's not exactly like what Noah's Ark would have looked like, but it would have also been built with, I'm sure, with some impressively huge trees and architecture. Here's another view looking down the middle of, this is actually up on the top level, which most people don't get to go see, but this is another view of the inside of the architecture there. They have a lot of displays that show you just how everything could have fit on the Ark quite easily. And so this shows what it could have been like if they stored all their water on board and all their food. And on the left-hand side, those are all like cages for smaller animals and insects. They have a display that showed what the living quarters might have looked like for Noah's family, and how they could have cooked all their meals on board. This shows how they could have had a garden on the Ark so that they had fresh vegetables throughout the year that they were on there. Other displays showing how they could have done carpentry and like blacksmithing and all sorts of different things to keep them busy while they were floating.
And probably for repair too, because I'm sure stuff might need to get fixed or whatever as they're going.
They have all these cages with different animal kinds, showing you what the animal kinds might have looked like before they started to disperse and become all the different species of animals that we see today through genetics. And I don't remember exactly what kind of animal this was, but they have a whole bunch of these cages with larger animals, and they look very real. This is a display showing how all the animals could have fit on board, where they could have been on the Ark, all the different names of the different kinds before they start branching off into different species after the flood. And so it's just a representation of how it would not have been hard to get everything on. It was a big ship, and there were fewer types of animals before they started becoming distributed across the surface of the world and breeding differently and becoming all the species that we see today. Among the many displays they have is one that shows all the different legends around the world of different cultures and the stories they have of the flood. And it's interesting, they don't all have the exact description that you find in the Bible, but they all have variations on this theme of the gods being angry with the world, and a few or one chosen person to save the world, basically, with his family, and different types of ships. Some of them say that he was on a canoe, and all these different things that are clearly not accurate, but they show you that there were these stories that were passed down over time, and all over the world people have these stories, and so it's not just like the Bible came up with this idea. It's something that people have known about. They have this huge door, and it's actually bigger than it looks in this picture, but a door on the side of the ark that you can get a picture in front of, and you can't really see it in this picture, but there's like a cross right in the middle above our heads. There's a light there in the shape of a cross, and they just use that to represent that just as there's only one door to the ark, there's only one way to get to heaven, and that's through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. They have many different food places there at the Ark, but the biggest one is this restaurant that holds, I think it's over 1,000 people.
What?
It's like 1,200 people that they can hold in this.
Wow.
Several buffet lines. When you go inside, well, now you can see why they can hold so many people. They have all these tables. But one of the neat things about this restaurant is it's like walking into Cabela's or Bass Pro Shops or something. They have all these animals in there, so it's a lot of fun to go around, and you can read about them and take pictures with them.
Oh, I like these ones.
Yeah, if you go during the spring, summer, fall, they have these animals that are, I don't even know what that stuff is.
Topiary, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
It's like green and alive.
Yeah, and they have elephants, they have giraffes, different animals that are kind of leading you toward the entrance of the ark and representing the animals as they came 2 by 2. They also have a zoo, which just keeps expanding every single year. So these are some of the birds they have there. They actually have lots and lots of birds, like parrots and different things that have been rescued from the wild, from they were injured or they were found in shelters and things. And so they have all sorts of different animals. They have a turtle that's a lot of fun because it walks around all the time. It's weird. It's constantly moving. It's not lazy, in my opinion. They have animal shows, and you can see some of the different animals, some that they don't even necessarily display, but they have them there to teach you about each day. They have a Zorse on the left, I think, or maybe it's, I don't know. One of those is a Zorse and one of those is a Zonkey.
I think the right one's a Zonkey, isn't it? It's the one that looks more like a zebra.
I think so. It's a breed between a zebra and a donkey, and yeah, I think the one on the left, the brown one, is the horse and the zebra breed. But that's to show you that donkeys, horses, mules, zebras, they all come from a common ancestor. Not because of evolution, but because all these different types were built into the original horse or whatever kind. And as they started separating and different genes were lost and such, they became the different animals that we see today, but they are all in the same family. And they have a petting zoo there. They have a lot of kangaroos that if they get close enough, you can pet them. So, they're also going to get giraffes someday. They don't have them yet. So it is really neat because this zoo is once a small part of the Ark exhibit, and now it's becoming a large main part of it. They have a big, nice playground for kids. If you go with your family and the kids get bored or tired or whatever, you can go out and play on the playground. And here's a view from outside, looking out over the little pond that is in front of the Ark. And you can see the answer center there in the background. And here is another view of the Ark from the edge.
Now you can see at the bottom there are people. So then now you get a better size understanding of how big it actually is.
Yep. So there's a lot more we could tell you about the Ark, and that was just a quick rundown. So you just need to go and see it for yourself, because you really can't understand a lot of these things that we show you or tell you about unless you can actually see it for yourself. It's a lot of stuff.
And they built the ark to the dimensions that God gave Noah in the Bible. So it's to the right size. They didn't just make those numbers up just because they thought they sounded like nice numbers.
Yep.
So the ark that God told Noah to build was a big boat. And it's cool to see it in real life.
Yeah.
Well, somebody's imagination of what it would have been in real life. Okay.
Yep.
I have some more stories.
Okay.
And this is our fourth part of this story from this lesson about salvation in the South Seas, about Lemba. And remember, she's living on the islands of Fiji, one of the main islands, and we finished our story last time with her taking something. Do you remember what she took? Hopefully you remember. It was a shell that her cousin Laliana had, and she thought about how pretty that shell looked and how she thought she really needed one, and so she took it. Well, her cousin went back to the city. Remember, she was from the capital city. She went back to the city for a while, and she came back to visit when it was getting close to the time of the Balalu. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Balalu. Well, her cousin came back, and she said, "Oh, did you notice, Lemba, the last time I was here, I had some really pretty shells, and one of them, my favorite one, a pink one, is missing. Did you maybe see it when you were like cleaning up under the mats, or did it just get tucked under something?" Lemba shook her head. "Oh no, I didn't see it at all. I don't know. I don't think so." And she kind of skipped off a little bit. But deep inside, she did know where that shell was. It was hidden in her things in her house because she had taken it because she really wanted it. She thought it was really pretty. Well, the people of the village were all getting together because it was the time for the Balalu. And I don't know if I'm saying it right because I don't know their language. I'm just reading what's in the book. But it's a kind of sea worm that only comes up one time of year. So they watch the moon and they watch the sun, and they know that this worm will come up from the coral just at this one day, and it'll come really, really early in the morning. And by the time the sun is all the way up, there won't be any more of these sea worms left. So the people would watch the moon very carefully and the sun, and they would figure out when it would be time for the Balalu to come. And when it's time, the people from the village will all go down toward the beach, and they'll sleep at the beach. So then they're ready when just the very edge of the sunlight comes up, like 4 or 5 in the morning. Then they'll get out in their canoes and paddle out to the water so that they can scoop up these sea worms to take back, and they like to eat them. Now, you can eat them raw if you want to, but most of them like to take them back and cook them. Sometimes they would cook them in banana leaves, or they would just mix them with some other things to eat, but they really like it, and it's like a big festival for all the people on Lemba's side of the island. And if they got enough Balalu, then they would take it in packages and they would carry it to people on the other sides of the island because it was such a special thing that only happened over here. So the girls are getting ready for the time of the Balalu. So they went down to the beach and they slept at the beach, and Lemba begged and she pleaded with her dad to let her go and let her get to see the Balalu for the first time. Usually kids aren't allowed to go with. But she convinced him to at least let her go down to the edge of the water and watch. So they got up really early in the morning, and Lemba helped her dad get his canoe, and he got some little baskets that he was going to scoop up the Balalu to put in his boat. And she helped him get ready to go, and she kind of pushed his canoe into the water to help him go, and then she hopped in because she wanted to be part of the adventure too. So she got into her dad's canoe, and he kind of was just shaking his head, but now he couldn't do anything about it because they were heading out to the water, and he didn't want to miss it. Because the fish know, too, that these sea worms are coming up to the surface, and so all the fish gather around to eat them, too. So they got out to the water just as the sun was coming up, and all the balalu started floating up to the surface, and they're colorful. They're like reds and greens, and so they would scoop them up with little baskets, and Lemba thought this was the coolest thing ever. Now she actually got to see what they looked like before her dad brought them home. So she got a basket, and she was scooping and scooping and scooping and bringing them in to the boat, but she kept kind of leaning on the edge of her canoe, and her dad kept reminding her, Lemba, you need to be careful, you're going to tip our canoe over. But she was just so excited. All the whole water just seemed like it was covered with all of these little worms, and she loved them. They were so tasty. So she kept scooping, and then there was a big fish coming by, and he was trying to eat up some of her balalu that she was scooping up. So she used one hand to push at the fish, and she used her other hand to scoop up her balalu, and she tipped over the edge of the canoe, and she spilled all the balalu she had in her basket and disappeared in the water. And her dad just shook his head. I can't believe it. Why did I bring this silly girl with me? I should have just left her at home. She should have been in the house. Where is she? He realized she hadn't popped back out of the water. And just as smoothly as the fish had swam away, her dad swam into the water, and he saw that she had bumped her head and that she was bleeding. So he brought her up out of the water, put her in his canoe, and a few other people came by, and they paddled her off to shore and took her back to her family or her mom, so they could bandage her up. They bandaged up her head, and she was still unconscious for a while. And then, when she finally woke up, she opened her eyes. She said, "What happened to me?" And her mother explained that she had fallen out and she had bumped her head on some coral, but they had bandaged it up. She said, "Ouch." And then she saw Lenlani, her cousin, and she said, "Oh, I need to tell you something. I have that shell that you're looking for and that you're missing. I have it. I took it. It was so pretty, and I really liked it so much I had to have it. So it's over there." And she kind of pointed to where her cousin could find it. And her cousin just nodded her head, and she said, "Lemba, I want you to think about something. Would you, when your father jumped in to rescue you when you fell in the water, would you have just told him, 'No, go away, I don't need your help getting rescued'?" Lemba said, "No, of course not. I needed him to rescue me because I was hurt." And her cousin smiled. She said, "That's just like Jesus. He knows you're hurt. He knows you have a problem, that you are a sinner and you make bad choices. And Lemba, you sinned. You took something that didn't belong to you." Oh, that's right. Lemba had taken something. She had stolen something. And you lied about it. Those are two big sins. And because you have done a sin, you can't go to God's perfect heaven. You can't live there. And Jesus wants to help you. Jesus came and he lived a perfect life, and he died on a cross because he loves you and because he wanted to pay the penalty for your sin. You can't pay it. You can't make enough good things for your bad things, and you can't do anything to make God happy because you've chosen to be sinful. But there's a great verse in the Bible, Lemba. It's John 3:16. It said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life." Lemba, we can even put your name in that verse. For God so loved Lemba that he sent his only begotten Son, that if Lemba believes in him, Lemba will have life forever. Don't you want to have everlasting life, Lemba? Don't you want to know where you're going to go someday? Lemba listened as her cousin talked about all these things, and it kind of made more sense now. She understood she did need to be rescued. Just like her dad had rescued her from the water, she needs someone to rescue her from her sin. And she was a sinner. She didn't think she was at first, but now she knows she is. She closed her eyes and she thought about it, and she said, "Yes, I think I want to trust Jesus right now." So she bowed her head and she prayed and told Jesus that she was trusting him to be her Savior, to save her from her sins. And you're going to have to come back next time to find out what happens with her family, with her friend, and hopefully her injury gets better from falling into the water. 2.
Well, I don't think I would like eating worms, but okay.
Supposedly it's really tasty, and it's got great vitamins, is what
Well,
I was reading about.
Good.
I mean, you don't have to eat them, but they really like them.
Okay. Today we're going... Oh, there you go. We're going to tell you about the Minix. Just a little sneak peek. So, we told you about the Minix. It's been a while. It's been several months since we told you about them. Our church now supports them as missionaries. And here is a picture of their family, a little older now, as you will see as we get going through the pictures. But they are still on deputation, but they hope to finish up by the end of this year. And so they visited recently a church plant in Tampa, Florida. And they said it was exciting to see what the Lord has done to gather a church there in the last 5 years. We took confidence from the fact that Christ builds his church, and if he can do it here, he can do it in Australia. And it was such a great opportunity for them to fellowship with other believers. And so here's a picture of them and their kids getting to know another one of the families. Also, while they were in Florida, they got to enjoy the boardwalk at Lettuce Lake Park, and they saw wildlife, including some alligators. And here's a sign that says,
Don't
"Watch
approach
out."
them or feed them. They're dangerous.
So here they are enjoying their time there, and I'm sure this must be where they saw the alligators, because they said that they saw an alligator fight between what appeared to be several males. Fun stuff. They also went to Massachusetts recently, and they got to visit Missionary Rock, and this is where Adoniram Judson and 6 other students from Andover Seminary got together every week, and they prayed that God would send missionaries to the different countries around the world that didn't have the gospel, and eventually several of them became those missionaries that went to all these places. And the names of those 7 men who prayed are on that plaque. And this is a cool picture for me because I've been there, and so I know exactly where they went and where they're standing. I have a picture with the same rock. Let's see. While they were in New Hampshire in April, they got snow. And that was kind of neat for them because in South Carolina, where they are from, they don't see snow very often. So this was like, for us, this would be like, oh yeah, snow. But for them, this was really unique. There are many things they love about deputation, or some people would call it pre-field ministry. But one of the things that they have especially liked is the opportunity for kids to see many different churches and ministries and to experience all of those. They said that so many people have poured love and attention and truth into our kids, and we are grateful. We are also thankful that they see that God uses so many types of people in so many areas and in so many walks of life and levels of spiritual maturity. They needed to get Naomi's visa before they could go to Australia, and the process has been taking a very long time, and so they thought that the earliest they could get the visa would be 2022, but after 8 months, after sending it off in late 2020, they received it, so they have it in hand now. Now it is a provisional visa, which means that she needs one thing to become a permanent resident there, and that is that by April of next year they have to go to Australia. And so they are praying that the Lord will help them complete their deputation and ministry by the end of this year so that they can do that. And a praise is that support is currently at 87%, And they also received news that Hudson's Australian citizenship was approved. I believe he's the youngest. So now all of the kids are dual citizens of the US and Australia.
That's cool.
Yep. So they're working on getting their passports and everything so that they can get over there, hopefully pretty soon. They are packing up and they need to figure out what they can take, how much space they'll have, which shipping company to use, and so a lot of logistics that they have to think through as they get ready to head over, hopefully at the beginning of the next year. Right now they live in Greenville, South Carolina with Naomi's parents, and they're moving to a new home soon too, so that means they have to pack up just to get out of that house, and so they have been busy working on that. So pray for them that they would be able to finish deputation by the end of 2021. Praise God that they have received Naomi's visa. Praise Him that their support level is over 87%.
So close.
And yeah, and prayer for them as they pack up and figure out what to take, what to leave, and who to ship it with so that it can all get over there, hopefully when they arrive over there. And so that they will be ready to go with their new ministry in Australia.
Yay. That's exciting.
So,
They're really close.
Yep.
Just a little bit more.
So pray for them and thank God for the many blessings that they have had in recent months, including getting that visa, which they really needed for Naomi. And so, yeah.
Yep.
We do have a hidden item today. It's a little harder to find than most, so
Look carefully.
Yep. And we will see you next time when we tell you one more thing about the Ark.
Come back next week.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.